Good afternoon and welcome to the First Nations Home Energy Save webinar. The Fraser Basin Council is working with First Nations communities and support organizations to reduce energy use, share success stories, and build local capacity through the First Nations Home Energy Save program. I'm your host, Sarah Fralin, and I'm the program coordinator for the First Nations Home Energy Save program at the Fraser Basin Council. If you have any questions about today's presentation or about our program, you're welcome to contact me, or you may also contact our program lead, Elena Chia, or our director, Jim Vanderwall. The Fraser Basin Council is located on the unceded ancestral territories of the Tsleil-Waututh, Squamish, and Musqueam nations, and works on the lands and waters of the 198 First Nations that make up what is now British Columbia. If you're experiencing any technical issues or you have a question, please get in touch with us by either raising your hand or typing in the chat or question box. You can also email my colleague, Michael Stanier, if you're experiencing technical difficulties with the GoToWebinar platform. I'd like to provide an opportunity for our audience to get to know each other. So I'd like to invite all of you today to type into the chat box your name and the organization or community you're representing and the location that you're joining us from today. While you're introducing yourselves in the chat box, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge our funders. The First Nations Home Energy Save program is possible in thanks to the generous support from the Real Estate Foundation of BC, the BC Ministry of Energy, Mines and Petroleum Resources, BC Hydro, and Fortis BC. Today's webinar is about building the business case for affordable energy efficient housing and communicating the return on investment to First Nations communities and leadership. Today I'm joined by three incredible panelists. Areef Abraham is the founder of Cambo Energy Group. He's a mechanical engineer with over 30 years of experience in the energy efficiency sector. Cambo Energy Group is a social enterprise that comprises of Community Power and Empower Me. Community Power works with Indigenous communities to manage and reduce energy costs. Empower Me focuses on providing in-language energy education by community mentors to newcomers and immigrants. Areef's passion is to advocate for energy and climate policies and programs that are equitable, just, and effective for all. Thank you for joining us today, Areef. Next, I'd like to introduce Chief Patrick Michell from Kanaka Bar Indian Band. Chief Patrick Michell is a member of the Nklakatma Nation. He practiced law in the Fraser Canyon until 2005. He served as Community Economic Development Officer until he was elected chief in 2015. Since 1978, Patrick has been involved with diverse renewable energy projects within his community's traditional territory. Thank you for joining us today, Chief Patrick. Next, I'd like to introduce Rick Sabiston, the Principal Consultant at 3E Consulting. Rick possesses extensive experience working with Indigenous communities, governments, and the private sector. He worked for Indigenous Services Canada for over 20 years, leading initiatives in lands, intergovernmental affairs, economic development, and community infrastructure. 3E Consulting engages parties to jointly collaborate and build sustainable partnerships. Thank you for joining us today, Rick. So let's move on to hear from our three panelists about building a business case for energy efficiency. Our first panelist is going to be Areef. Welcome, Areef.
In utilities and governments across Canada who over the last 30 years have helped me understand energy efficiency and demand side management. So where I am today and what I'm going to present to you is based on the learning and the help that I've received from a lot of people, and it's been a 30-year work in progress. So it's not just my work; it's all the people in the industry who have helped in getting this to happen. As Sarah said, there are two divisions in the company that I founded 12 years ago now, and it's really the focus is to focus on reducing energy poverty in communities and missed in the design and delivery of traditional programs. So that's us, and I think we're about a 40 people company, both in BC and in Alberta. Okay, so I'm starting off with my slick slide here, the idea is really to give you a little bit of history of demand side management and the role of energy efficiency. So the graph here, and hopefully you can see my pointer as well. So we've got energy demand here, and we've got time or the year along here. And that is supposed to be a curve of what demand may look like, right? So you can see it rising over there. And what was happening, or what people said in the transmission industry, the utilities, was every time we come here, of course, we have to put generation capacity, generation capacity on, and that the cost involved in that. And you know, we're very familiar with the term flatten the curve, and so DSM with utilities started with really trying to flatten the curve. And as the curve was flattened, what we did was we deferred or delayed the building of new generation equipment. And what happens is when you delay it, of course, all the interest charges and the costs, etc., get reduced. So there is a real saving in pushing generation capacity back. So that's kind of an overview, a very simplistic overview of how utilities operate, and I apologize for that, but I think it's important to put that in perspective. Demand side management really started in the 70s, and it really started with the oil crisis. And anybody who can remember the oil crisis of the 70s is showing your age. And it really started because the demand for oil, you know, the Middle East put an embargo on a lot of Western countries for their support of Israel during the Yom Kippur War, and that got everybody thinking about we've got to think about this energy stuff. Then in the late 80s and 90s, utility regulators across North America provided incentives for utilities to pursue least cost integrated resource. The concept there was to change out, let's have bulbs for a 20 kilowatt, 20 provided free with an incentive. So now we've released effectively 80 watts of power for power-hungry Areef without having to build a new generation plant. So you can see what we're happening is we're reducing energy from one person or one customer and then spreading it around without the generation capacity needed. Again, it's very simple, simplistically how I'm putting it, but it gives you an idea. So the potential savings are calculated based on the utilities understanding. When utilities develop programs, they're based on the utilities understanding of the homes and the equipment. The result is that energy efficiency program, because of the way they need to be done, have ended up almost being one size fits all. The program is designed to look at the overall, particularly in the residential sector. The challenge we have when we work with Indigenous communities is about 44% of Indigenous homes in Canada are in need of major repairs. And we've seen that the potential to realize additional savings is much greater. The challenge that we, utilities, and others have is that there is very little quantified data to influence energy programming in indigenous communities. I mean, we have some experience having worked with over 60 communities over the last decade, and so we have an idea, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. And so it's important. And so what happens is the utilities really cannot spend more on energy efficiency than cost that the commission or the Utilities Commission has allowed them to do. And so it is important to remember that the utility programs are there to meet utility goals. And indigenous nations really, in my view, need to develop their own DSM plans and a capital plan that quantifies the savings, benefits, and costs. Because I think the two, there are similarities, there are connections, and one can leverage the other, but it's a different ballgame, I believe, in terms of the state of indigenous housing at the moment. The impact of all of this is we have nearly 2.8 million people in Canada living in energy poverty. I'll tell you what energy poverty is described as somebody or a household whose energy bills are greater, the ratio of the energy bills to their income is double what the average Canadian person pays. And so in Canada, the average amount that people pay for electricity relative to the average income is about 3%. So the energy poverty threshold is 6%. So if people who are paying, or households who are paying more than 6% or more of their income on energy costs, home energy costs, then they are deemed to be energy poor. This concept came from the UK when I was involved in a program back in the 90s, where in the UK the percentage for the average was 5%, and so the energy poverty piece was 10%. So that's kind of an important piece because it gives us an idea of what people are paying. So putting that in perspective, if someone has a monthly income of $4,000, and that's disposable income, and then their energy bills need to be $240 or less to not be in energy poverty. In British Columbia, we're looking at nearly 260,000 people in energy poverty. Again, as I said, we don't have the data in Indigenous communities, but from our experience, the portions of income spent on energy is about 3 times higher. And in fact, I have personally met seniors whose energy bills amount to about 80% of their income. So the Indigenous communities really are the hardest hit where energy use is extremely high, primarily because of poor housing, or historical poor housing. And the other impact that has is 70% of energy on reserve is used in housing. So energy bills are a large drain of cash out of communities who pay the bills, and these communities are typically very financially strapped. So we've got a kind of a tension happening here. Fortis BC and BC Hydro have the Energy Conservation Assistance Program that has supported 17,000 homes since 2008, and I think there is movement, and they've done some good work there. But there are limitations that we face, or the program faces, on how much work can be done in a particular home. I'll give you an example. For example, we want to put attic insulation, but if the roof is leaking, we can't put attic insulation in. So until we cure the attic insulation, the roof, we can't put attic insulation. And so it kind of, that's why the whole concept of a holistic view of housing and how we access it, how we access energy efficiency in Indigenous housing has to be thought in a different way. So the answer that we have working with many communities and utilities is really the concept that energy and housing are independent. So holistic thinking is the key lesson learned from working with over 60 nations. And really to be successful, they're dependent on 3 foundational components. we need to create a baseline through comprehensive housing assessment that go beyond energy and integrate safety, health, and comfort improvements. The last thing we want to do is to make Auntie's house energy efficient, but the stairs at the back are dangerous. So we've got to look at these things together. Quantifying energy savings and costs is really important. Otherwise, we are essentially just kind of thinking about, oh, this looks exciting. This is the shiny new energy efficiency toy we've got. Let's put that in. And so I think the plan really needs to have a prioritized action, not based on the community's needs, not based on the needs of others. And every funder generally has their own needs why they're providing funding, but the community needs to have its own view and develop a long-term capital plan and business case to align goals, prioritize efforts, and unlock additional federal, provincial, and other funding to make long-term investments. And so really it's about find out where we are in terms of our housing. Where do we want to go? And that includes the leadership in communities and of course members, and not forgetting the youth, because they're going to be there for a long time and they're going to have opinions. What are the options? Should we go for renewables? Should we do insulation? Should we put heat pumps in? I think it's important to look at all of them before we jump into one. And what are the outcomes? Are we going to save energy? Okay, how much? Are we going to save dollars? How much? Greenhouse gases? How much? What's the payback period? What's the return on investment? So the capital plan is really there, included within it is energy efficiency. It will really help communities guide their way forward. And so, it's things like, just because some funding doesn't say energy efficiency on it, it doesn't mean you can't use it for energy efficiency. So I think it's a question of having the plan and then looking at the funds and saying, okay, what can we do? And my personal drive is I'm hoping that Indigenous communities can say to government and others that, look, we need X million dollars and it's well quantified and we need it over so many years. So we have a plan and we're basically specifying it. And what that stops is the piecemeal throwing of funding here, there, and everywhere. Communities can have a solid plan that they can move forward with. And so, the capital plan and business case prioritizes and does exactly what and finds out what needs to be done. But accurate construction estimates are so critical. We've seen auditing and assessments happening at the national level with EnerGuide, and they're pretty good at giving us potential savings, but there are no construction costs. And they give us one way of moving with energy efficiency, but maybe we can't afford all of those. Maybe we've only got $10,000 a house. How do we do that? So the business case really has to be dynamic. It has to be able to look at all the approaches that are based really on the goals of the communities. But health, social and cultural benefits also need to come into display, because again, we mustn't silo, in my view, energy efficiency on its own. It's the holistic solution. It's people's homes, and we need to tie those together. So, example on the screen here of energy use of one of the plans that we have done, and you can see we have the estimated energy use for this house, the energy cost. We have the intensity and various other factors. Where's the energy going? And we also have the cost of each energy saving measure that's being proposed or potentially could go in. And so we've got the cost of the measure. How much is it going to cost to put air sealing and insulation? In this case, it's $4,400. Okay, energy saved 37 gigajoules a year. And how many dollars? So that's $500 that in this particular jurisdiction. Half of some greenhouse gases is 0.05 tons. And what's the payback period? So you can see that communities can play around with this in terms of the particular software that we've developed, the approach we've taken, where you not only have a report based on individual houses that you then have to analyze, but that you could look at this across communities, across the whole community. And so the community can decide, okay, what is it, can we optimize things for reducing energy bills? Or can we optimize our work for greenhouse gas savings or health and safety. And we can look at it each home, and we can look at the whole community as a whole. Or, as I said earlier, we've got $10,000 per home. What's the best things we can do? So it's a plan that can target specific goals, and that's been our goal over the last certainly 5 years, to make this as automated as possible. We've had, with the help of BC Hydro, a great kind of example of this kind of collaborative approach and a holistic approach. We've worked with Kudacha Nation amongst many nations for a long time now, 7 or 8 years, I remember. And we did some comprehensive assessment on the 90 homes. The assessments were funded by BC Hydro with the goal of providing an actionable pathway and reducing energy costs. And so this was a holistic nature in terms of the assessments. And we then, or not we, but Kudacha Nation, with our help, essentially asked Indigenous Services for funding under the New Approach for Housing. And they received just under $1 million late last year to update 22 homes. So that's $45,000 per home. And so it's a significant amount of money, but there's a plan there, and it had specifications for upgrades. It had the way in which the nation would go around selecting a contractor, how the quality would be controlled. And so this is an example of how, when the nation develops its program, we can bring in funding and meet many funding partners' goals as a result of that. So I think what I'd like to do at this stage is really to maybe reach out to my colleagues and friends and partners in utilities and governments and say, maybe it's time we rethink how we approach energy efficiency in Indigenous communities. And maybe we turn the DSM model that's been going on for 30 years, which is essentially based on incentives and tips, on its head, and allow nations to develop their own DSM plan, support them in doing that, and then come back and say, okay, here's the potential for energy savings. How can we support that work? I think that'll be a much stronger partnership, and I believe that it'll provide we can provide incentives based on the reality of housing in the communities, and in my view, would realize significantly greater savings at, I believe, a lower cost. And I think if we adopt this model, then I think we are also getting closer to BC government's adoption last year of the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. And it particularly addresses Articles 4, 21, 23, and 39 of the UN rights. So I think it's a much bigger topic, and obviously in this 10-minute section that I have, it's not something that we can dwell on, but I'd be happy to talk to nations and to utilities and to governments on this approach, because I believe it's a way forward. We have to look beyond what we have been doing for the last 30 years. So finally, in the spirit of that, we have developed a training program around housing assessments and technology transfer. How can we take our technology and how can we provide training and mentorship to nations that we build those skills for community members to really do this housing assessments and to develop their own capital plans, manage trades, construction, and develop robust maintenance system. So this is a work in progress by us, but we're looking for starting this with 6 to 8 communities. So if you're interested, or if you know any communities that might be interested in this program, please do get in touch with us. And the best people to get in touch with is either myself or my colleague Scott Roberts, who I think is on the call, who's on the webinar at the moment, and Scott is our Senior Community Partnership Manager. So I'll stop now. Thank you. And here's the email addresses for myself and for Scott. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Areef. That was very informative. So I'm just switching back to my screen here. It was wonderful. And I see a few questions have popped up in the chat or in the question box already, which is great. We are going to hold off on questions until we hear from all three of our panelists. But audience members, please continue to write your questions in the question box. So they're already sitting there when we're ready to dive into Q&A. There was one clarifying question that came up, and that was around where can people access the new approach for housing and support funding? And I believe that's an ISC program. Is that right?
Yes,
That's
it is.
through Indigenous Services Canada. That's right. Great, wonderful. So thank you so much, Areef, again. Our next speaker is going to be Rick. So I'm just going to invite him to share his screen with us. Great. Now let's just make sure Rick is unmuted. Looks like perfect. Go ahead,
Are
Rick.
we on? Great. Can you see? But my screen is not on.
I can see your slide.
Oh, you can.
Yep.
I can't see my slide.
Oh, it disappeared from your screen.
There we are. I've got it now. Thanks. Hello, everybody. Thanks for your patience as we wade through this technology. First of all, it's an honor to be here, and thanks. Unfortunately, we can't see everybody, but certainly I'm sure there's a number of folks on the call as well. I'm really honored to be sandwiched in between these two guest speakers that we have, and hopefully, even though we've just got 10 minutes, I can provide some key points to take away. If they, for what it is about, they've asked me to talk about planning for opportunities and building support for energy efficiency programs, applications, or plans. And the four key points that I hope can resonate a bit, just some takeaways, can be helpful. And a little bit of background to how I came to these points is that through my experience working in delivering programs, and definitely, I'll say being guided by Indigenous communities and people on what works, what doesn't work, and then being on the receiving side of programs, seeing applications that come in but don't go anywhere or don't get approved, or oftentimes applications would get approved, however, follow up down the road, the same people aren't there in place and nobody knows what happened to this plan. So hopefully these just key point takeaways will at least help with number one, for people applying for funding or considering doing an energy plan, can take this information and just help lay out what it is that you want to do. And I'll say for the agencies and who deliver programs on the call, also maybe flip that around and look at it through your own lens as far as who your clients are and will it really benefit the clients. Oftentimes we just end up chasing the money rather than developing a project that will have some legacy. So I had those 4 points. Why do we even want to do it? Areef talked a bit about a lot of those benefits and the long-term visions and goals, not only for communities, but for governments. And who is the audience or stakeholders? And oftentimes we forget, well, who are we really doing this for? 2 other important questions, I think. What if we don't do it? Big deal. We don't do it. Do we need it? We need to look at that. And is it really worth it? Do we have the resources to do it? Number 4 is, what if we do it? What are those benefits? And then just quickly touch on, that's what feeds into developing the briefings and applications to get people's buy-in. So just a few more notes on each of those 4 things. Why do we even want to do it? Well, oftentimes, for instance, a housing manager or a capital manager is told, hey, we need to do some energy efficiency planning, or there's a new program that's coming down, let's apply to it. But I think it's critical to take a step back at that point and say, well, whose idea is this? And is it just for one person that we're doing this, or are we having to satisfy a number of different interests? We might be reporting to a board, we might be reporting to the community. So know these things up front when you start looking at developing your plan, because you'll need to get that buy-in. One of the steps, Areef spoke a bit about this as well, is knowing that current environment. What are those asset conditions and current and forecasted impacts to the assets if you did embark on an energy program? Those assets are also your own internal resource assets. Do you have the people to put in place to carry the project forward? It's always good to check in with the person requesting you to do this project or the people that you have to report to, especially around for their decision processes and timelines, so that you know what kind of a timeline you're working with when you're going forward and doing the planning. Who is the audience? The audience can be a lot of people, and that person doing the planning or the proposal writing is really in a sandwich, and it's sometimes a difficult spot to be. So you want to be able to clarify what are the expectations or interests for all of those people you're trying to satisfy. You're having to report up to the leadership or over to the community members and or to the funders or agencies who are delivering funding if you're looking for funding. It's good to just make a list and write down what are the common elements or interests everybody has, but what are the conflicts? And that will help guide you through developing your plan and especially your briefing and communications material. It's going to inform the whole approach on where you go and also impact your timelines. That next critical bullet is around who do you engage and what is the process for engaging? Because you need to get people's input on developing that plan. And that's going to inform all of the next steps. And I think even going back to what Areef was talking about is getting that baseline information, checking it in with everybody so that you know that you're on the right course. It's like building a house. You need that solid foundation to move forward. Oftentimes it'll be a multi-pronged approach where you're having to use a certain language or process or approach with one group of people, and then you'll have to change and have another approach where it resonates with another group of your clients or the end users or those decision makers ultimately. Well, what if we don't do it? Big deal. You know, you hear about this opportunity that comes along, but you don't end up doing it. Well, it's good to take a first look at it and say, well, what's the impact of not taking any action? Again, Areef opened that door for us to say, what is the impact? We all know how energy costs can really suck away dollars from other programs, from people's own socioeconomic well-being. But those are the things you need to look at for determining, is it worthwhile to move forward? And if you don't do it, are you satisfied with things the way they are today? Specific impacts, again, looking at the different parties. What's the impact on the audience who you're trying to respond to for this request? Who are the stakeholders? The funders, the end users being the occupants in housing, and also you've got your other community buildings as well. What are those socioeconomic factors? And that's the need for the business case. So Areef spoke about that, and it's something else to underscore, because that's what will guide your decision making and the impacts that it has on the finances for a community, for instance, in a band office, and also for government to see that their investments are creating a benefit. What if we do it? That fourth item is, what would happen? What's the impact? What's the benefit? How does it align with the goals for yourself, the community who is ever asking for this project to move forward? It links back to those inputs that you've gathered through that step 2 of engaging. because then you can align the impacts of moving forward, matching the interests to those of each of the parties or occupants or leadership, people that are involved and impacted by this energy project. If we do it, is it sustainable? Back to the business case again to confirm both direct and indirect socioeconomic benefits. And it also, in that process, you will identify the resources needed to implement and sustain it. Maybe you need to hire more people, but it could also provide some direct or indirect benefits for training people in the community so that dollars stay in the community and not go out the community. So overall, you want to paint that picture, thinking of the impacts to all of the different, I say stakeholders, but people involved and impacted by a decision of to go forward with the energy project or not to go forward with the energy project. But I think in most cases, there's a lot of benefits, and we'll hear from Chief Patrick Michell on this, those benefits of moving forward with getting energy efficiency in a community. And so you gather that information, or just quickly thinking about the briefings and applications, we could spend a lot of time just on that. However, you want to tailor that document to the reader. So you may have different communication pieces, one for leadership or decision makers, another for occupants of the buildings that are going to be more energy efficiency, that they may need training. So there may be a number of different documents that you have to align that addresses their interests. Executive summaries, best to keep them 2 to 3 pages, because most of us all don't have a lot of time to read long documents, and then you'd have your background material after that executive summary. The key thing is highlighting those interests that'll be met for each of those parties that you're providing this communication material for. With applications for funding or financing, you want to know the objectives and deliverables of that program as well. So knowing the impacts, what you're doing, how is it going to resonate with that entity delivering the program. And I would like to just flip that around too for those entities on the calls who do deliver programs. It's knowing what your clients need, the users need, and then developing the program that's going to then best benefit them. That's a real quick Coles Notes version of it. Any questions though, feel free to call me, and any one of these pages, these 4 items could be a long study. So thanks for your time.
Thank you so much, Rick. That was wonderful. So just a reminder to our audience to type those questions into the question or the chat box, and we'll get to them in the question and answer period after our next presenter. So next up, we have Chief Patrick Michell from Kanaka Bar Indian Band. So I am just going to invite him to share his screen with us. And let's unmute Chief Patrick. Okay, let's see, Chief Patrick, if we can see your desktop.
Okay.
And we can hear you. Fantastic.
Excellent then. So let's go find this presentation. Just let me know if this is showing, Sarah.
This looks good. We can see your web browser.
Oh, where's my presentation? Sarah, where's my presentation?
Oh, let's find it together.
Oh, library, presentations. Oh, look, there it is right there. I'm going to be speaking fast. I'm an information overload machine gun style, so if you can't keep up, right click and steal.
Yeah, we're showing everybody that, so you can download Chief Patrick's presentation directly from the website if you'd like.
All right, so when I was invited to share and I heard Rick was involved, Rick, thank you very much. Rick helped me develop what's called a housing policy that now sees me collect 100% of my rent, and I've been doing it since the housing policy was created. My housing policy is 60 pages long, and in short says pay up or get out. I have sometimes 3 months payment in advance. Thank you, Rick, for helping me develop that. In terms of the asset quality, in terms of the buildings and whether it's maintenance, whether it's administration, whether it's residential, we got Areef years ago to come up. He basically kicked down some doors, checked around, gave me some priorities and what to do and how to do it and when to do it and all that sort of stuff. So I was really pleased to be able to invite to share. Now, I don't have evaluating results with capital plans and energy plans. Thank you very much. Apparently, Areef can produce that. Who benefits? That's what my presentation is about. And I'll focus on one person. His name is Michell, who saw his energy at 33% go down to 6% as a result of our energy efficiency outlays. So here we go. Is there a business case for energy efficiency? Absolutely. Okay. For any person who doesn't know about Kanaka Bar or Kanaka Bar story, we're located 18 kilometers south of Lytton, BC, Canada's hotspot. So that means we have a problem in the summertime keeping our houses cool with air conditioners. So there we are. There's my little traditional territory. We live in a region of British Columbia where we guarantee all third parties negative return on investors. So therefore, we have no Tim Hortons, Walmarts, no oil and gas, no mining, no tourism, no agriculture, and I always miss one. So at the end of the day, the biggest player in town is the Kanaka burning ban itself, how it was for 8,000 years. Okay. Now, who should know about energy efficiency? Let me put it this way. If you're paying a hydro bill, you should know about energy efficiency. If you want to pay more to BC Hydro for the energy you consume, by all means. Otherwise, you should be listening to a presentation on is there a business case on energy efficiency? Hi, everybody. Okay. I know that this is tied into First Nations, but guess what? Individuals live on and off reserve. Families live on and off reserves. Indian bands and Indians own corporations. Now, I can't speak for municipalities and I can't speak for the federal and provincial governments, but municipalities, federal and provincial governments should truly know about energy efficiency. They're one of the biggest renters. They're one of the biggest consumers of energy in BC and Canada. I think Areef mentioned that. So we need our governments to step it up. So at the end of the day, and I like this, you know what, even as a renter, you want to pay BC Hydro more money? Why don't you introduce a form of demand side management to reduce your consumption down? Unless you manage to get your landlord to pay for hydro included in the rent, that's not very often. So anyway, that's that slide. Why do we need to know about energy efficiency? Well, again, I'm not really trying to forecast anything here, but is the price of hydro going up in BC? Yes. Is the reliability of hydro in BC going down? Yes. Is consumption going up? Yes. So therefore, guess what? Your cost of electricity is going up. If you don't do it, you're going to pay more. You won't be at 33%. You won't be at 80%. You bet 84%. You bet 90%. You better figure this out because you're paying through the nose already. And then throw in climate change, which is, so I think engineers call it the FDI, frequency, duration, intensity. We already have a climate adaptation strategy website that says that increasing in frequency, duration, intensity will be lightning storms, will be windstorms, will be rainstorms. Well, guess what? When you have wires hanging on a pole, they tend to get blown down, knocked down by branches, they burn. Isn't there just a fire down in Vancouver today that said the hydro poles next to a fire caught on fire and the power went out? Well, what happens if that's happening every day? Ask Sri Lanka, for an entire country out of power. Talk about California. By the way, how's the Gulf of Mexico doing? I think there's something coming up. I think Texans and Louisianas are moving to Canada pretty darn soon because they're now getting 2 hurricanes at the same time, let alone a Hurricane Rita, then Hurricane Katrina followed by Hurricane Rita 10 days apart. You know what? You've got this incredible, terrible storm of bad events coming. You better know about energy. And my comment here is, if you can do more with less energy, and I love this when I stole it from somebody's website, and I think somebody from that site is on listening, so that's just funny. But you know what? Don't put your information on the website and not let me right click and steal. Have a look. Why do you need to know? Because if you don't pay electricity, your mom does. If your mom doesn't, your grandma does. Learn this so that you can create awareness in the people you know. We all are British Columbians. We all are Canadians. Learn this so that we can teach your children and grandchildren how to reduce their energy consumption, thus pay less. So where are you then? Okay. Now, I go energy efficiency easy as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We started in 1978 on an energy management plan. All right, so I didn't do the math. 2020 minus 1978, you go figure that out. I'm not going to, right? Areef's been around for 30 years. I don't know, 2020 minus 1978. They gave me a Lifetime Achievement Award for my work in the renewable energy sector a couple of years ago. And what do I know? What do I do? I just live it. How do you quantify benefits? We just live with them. But for those people who like executive summaries with your stuff on the back page, Rick, I'm sure I'll come up with some. Here you are. We've been working for a long time. There's early adopters, early majority sometime, but how do we get everybody into early majority and late majority? Show them how to save money. So here we are. So at Kanaka Bar, we're doing the same as or more with less. We've implemented a 5-pronged energy management system: energy monitoring, demand side management, we're renovating, we're new construction, and finally we're producing our electricity. It's a holistic approach. You heard Areef speak to this. 5 different ways we're approaching. Why? Because electricity is now at the bottom of energy. When I was growing up, I walked to town. And as soon as I can get an electric vehicle, I'll drive my electric vehicle to town. The problem with electrification is, where's the electric vehicles, British Columbia? But electric vehicles will increase my energy consumption. So all I'm saying is, at the end of the day, we've implemented a 5-pronged approach to overall energy management. All right, a little more story about Kanaka Bar. We didn't just start this by pulling it out of our, oh, geez, just a moment. Can you guys see me? Give me a thumbs up if you can.
Yeah.
Look what they just brought in. Oh, and this is being recorded. My summer students' last days today. This is the shirt they're getting, just so you know. So no worries. I just want to let you guys know that here it is here. 2 years after the residential school started, we were pissed off when we said, what are we going to do? The federal government will save us. The provincial government save us. Philanthropy will save us. Wankers. For 8,000 years, we were independent, self-reliable, and self-determining people. And by 1976, we were broken. It took us 2 years to figure out, no, that's not the way we want to roll forward. So we started in 1978, and here we are today. Kanaka Bar's Green Economy story is online. The video to the next 1,000 years online. These links work. Sarah and I tested it this morning. You can look at these items online. There's over 61 presentations now. Kanaka Bar survived colonization. What do you want to do about it? I have an idea. Let's look to our past. What you do to land or allow others to do, you do to yourself. So guess what? We've taken over 40 years our land and resources back. We are self-determining again. Yes, we're still grid connected, but at the same time, look at number 5. We're producing our own electricity through wind, through solar, and through hydro. But that is the bottom of our energy management plan. So here's the circumstances that are facing British Columbia and Canada as a whole. There are 5 physiological foundations: air, water, food, shelter, and energy, that gave my people the ability to live for 8,000 years. Climate change is now here. So that means fight, die, move, or innovate. Where are the Texans and Louisianans going? Where are the people from Bangladesh going? Where are people from the Mekong Delta going? Without food, without water, without shelter, without energy, you're going to see a massive amount of displacement. This stuff is real. It's happening now. And at the same time, here in BC and in Canada, we're somewhat insulated, but it will impact us. So we need to start focusing on these physiological foundations, and energy is one of them. I say right here, it's not innovative to go back to using land and resources to live sustainably. So we are using 5 principles to manage our energy. Energy efficiency. For example, look at the comment here. Not everybody at Kanaka Bar, we're not frozen in time. It's not innovative, but I don't want to sit down there and cook my steak over a campfire. Remember Shania Twain's song? You burnt it. I like it like that. I don't like burnt steak. I get a nice medium heat over a beautifully controlled electric range, and man, that steak is perfect every time. Throw that baby on a stick on the fire, that baby's burnt every time. But here, again, I talk to my kids. Do you want to go? I grew up with an outhouse. They said, we don't want an outhouse. Well, I lived in a house of electricity. They don't want to do that. So look at this. Look at this image. We are not stuck in time. We are now poised to transition and adapt, and energy efficiency is the leader in that. Okay? Reduce your consumption, pay more, or go without. Why should you know energy efficiency? There you go. So number one, here's the hydro bill. First of all, Sarah, is your mic on? Please tell me what the rate rider at 5% is for.
Oh, the rate rider. So that is BC Hydro's way of mitigating risk, I think, by collecting a little bit of extra funds from each of us.
It's called a tax. Thank you, Sarah. BC Hydro not only charges you a basic charge of 18 cents a day or $11.39 a month just to be connected, they charge you 5% for use as a BC Hydro tax, just in case we screw up. I also call it the 9%. It'll get the 9%, the Site C debacle. But anyway, I digress. Look to the hydro bill. My membership do not understand this bill. Most of them get this bill in hard copy. It does not say what's using energy. This hard bill says this was your monthly consumption. How do you convince people to reduce their daily, hourly, weekly consumption if they only get a monthly report? So we can get them onto the myhydro.com. Really, there's assumption that all of my elders have a computer. They don't. So we're dealing with Indigenous people, but remember, not everybody has a computer. Not everybody can read their hydro bill. So you start with the hydro bill. It's Kanaka's energy monitoring. Awareness. Do you know where your energy comes from? Do you know what's using your energy? Do you know how much your hydro bill is? This member here actually paid $250 in advance of this bill, winding up with a $218 credit. Why are you doing that? Oh, because that's what my mom told me to do. It's better to have money in the bank than sitting there trying to pay catch up to an $1,800 bill or whatever. So this is an example. Second one here. Alrighty, Areef, tell me about step 1 and step 2. Unmute that bad boy.
Okay, this is, I didn't know I was going to have a test. So Patrick, so step 1 allows you is a rate which I think from here is 8.5 or 9 cents a kilowatt hour up to 1,300 kilowatt hours, and then above that you're paying 12 or 13 cents. So if you're heating with electricity, you will have a challenge getting on to staying on step 1. Anyway,
thank you. Now, if you guys notice, this bill is from 2018. The current step 1 charge is 10 cents a kilowatt hour. The current step 2 charges 14 cents a kilowatt hour. My membership's income has not changed. Even if they kept their consumption identical, their bill is going up because the rate is going up. We have a 10-year rates plan. I think we're in 6 or 7 years of it. So get used to it. We will eventually potentially get to 16, 18 to 20 cents per kilowatt hour if you're in step 2. Energy efficiency systems keep you in step 1. You want to pay BC Hydro 20 cents a kilowatt hour? You're crazy. I want to pay BC Hydro 10 cents a kilowatt hour and then slap some solar on it and pay them 0 cents an hour. Just to prove a point, BC Hydro's Power Smart and their bill don't tell you what actually consumes. So one of the things here is you guys need to check out these monitors. We have 12 operating solar panels, and each one tells me how much I'm consuming and how much I'm producing. But more importantly, I'm using what's called a curbs technology, which is a $700 alligator clip system that plugs into my breaker box. And then you label that alligator clip as basement photocopier. That means last week I paid $1.44 at 10 cents a kilowatt hour. So this is available 24/7, 365 on a second-by-second basis. I just chose to click and show you a week's worth of consumption based on 16 alligator clips. The other one is the cents. Why? Now use an example. Here we have a stove here that used 30 cents. I have a staff of 20 people and we used the stove and we only paid 30 cents for a week. It used to be $30 because the stove was from 1971. We then found out how much it was consuming and we switched out and put an energy efficient stove in there. Beauty. You need to know what's consuming electricity. If it heats electricity some, get rid of it or turn it off. You want to piss off the chief? When I check this and find out that the conference room baseboard heater was on over the weekend, it is 40 degrees out. It's happened. That sucker can eat $40 a week. Areef just warned us, watch out for your electric heat. That's one of your biggest consumers of your energy. Demand side management. So we have BC Hydro's Power Smart. Once again, go online, everybody, at Kanaka Bar. Oh, wait, they can't. And learn how people in British Columbia are reducing their energy consumption through tips. Not everybody enjoys working with BC Hydro. That's a whole different story. And not everybody can access BC Hydro's DSM materials. So we created our own. Remember, we're now monitoring consumption. So we put together a calendar that says, here are 52 things you can do over the next 52 weeks. And I'll tell you this much, that we created 4 energy prizes. The number one reducer gets a 1 kilowatt solar installed on their roof. That was the first place prize. What everybody got was a reduction between 20 and 40% of their hydro bill. I've now got 6 members who are always in tier 1. That's through DSM alone. So guess what? DSM works. And all it requires you is to turn a few things off. I love the last one. When you go to this link and open up our calendar, the last thing you need to do is put on a sweater rather than turn on your heater. It's the last thing. The 52nd week is for 3 points. Take a picture of yourself with your thermostat off and a sweater on. So it's basically a replication of the BC Hydro's Power Smart, but with an Indigenous flair and stint. So we're going to compile all these pictures, and we're going to continue to advance energy efficiency through awareness. If Smokey the Bear, if my grandmother can turn down her thermostat, why can't you? My favorite one is I had a band member come in and shake her hydro bill at me and said, "Where's my hydro bill? $800. I looked, she had 5 air conditioners on, 2 doors open and 3 windows open. You might want to close your windows and doors. Because we don't pay hydro bills here at the band. The members do. The tenants do. The band doesn't pay for the hydro. What band does? What government pays for its individual's hydro? So that's a tough one. It wasn't an easy sell. All right. So let's look at the existing infrastructure. Now this is Albert. So Albert sat down here. He lives in a 5-bedroom house all by himself. His rent was $200 a month. His income is $600 because he's basically on disability. So that's 33% of his income was spent on electricity. And because of renovation and the DSM, he's now down to 6%. So how would you justify that? He doesn't care about the numbers. He cares about the fact he's paying $40. One of the things I disagreed with him on is the way he manages his washer and dryer is he goes to somebody else's house and uses theirs. That is not one of the steps in our calendar, but he took it to heart. If somebody else is paying the bill, he don't have to. But I love it. That's innovation. That's getting energy awareness and just a really weird way of keeping your bill down. Just so you know. All buildings were inspected. We can't do it all. Priority has been implemented. We try to use the contract to do more than one thing. So if we're working on a roof and we're going to be insulating that roof with some stuff, we ask the guy, can you fill up your tank and do 4 roofs at the same time? Hey, no problem, right? So you try to do as much as possible. That's not what a capital plan or an energy plan. So what Areef was talking about is we're not doing that. We're just doing it. Because the beneficiary is the membership who has a reduced bill. That's our goal. Use less, pay less. All right. Goal, keeping the warm out in summer, cool out in winter. Keep your windows and doors closed. I wrapped your house, okay? I wrapped your house. The heat's not escaping. We have a video that's coming up that shows in one of our houses, we had 10 air evacuations per hour and we went down to 4, but an energy efficient home is about 2. But I can only do so much with yesterday's broken models. 50 years we've lived with crap infrastructure. I can only seal so many gaps. It's just shoddy construction. I don't want to get into that history. It's like trying to deal with BCR. For whatever reason, Indigenous homes were poorly constructed. And that's why we hammered so much in energy. So let's renovate those homes to at least get it from 10 air evacuations down to 4. If I can get it to 2, that's fantastic. because I asked you to close the door. The problem is there's so many gaps in your house that they're the size of a freaking barn door. At least let's get it down to a window. So look at this. This is renovations. Watch the videos. They're funnier than heck. It's called Reno Nations. These links work, right? So at the end of the day, by the way, Areef, thanks. When was the last time Cambo and Community Power was here? Come on, keep on top of your fingers there, Sarah.
That's a great question. So Areef, you're self-muted, so you just have to click unmute on your own little panel.
I think it's probably 3 years or something, Chief
Really?
Patrick.
So does that mean our renovation stopped without you?
I'm sorry.
No, it didn't. You showed me how to do it. I said, go on, don't let the door hit you on the way out. We've been doing our own energy efficiency renovations. You showed me how to do it, and now I'm doing it. Rick,
Excellent.
you came up here, you gave me a housing policy. Now I've just implemented it. You can take all the credit for the housing policy. As a band, we get all the benefit, which is 100% rent collection, which pays for the people who are doing the energy renovations. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Let's now talk about this new construction. Now let's bring it all together. We're now in number 4. Number 4 is, I have an idea. Let's get away from building crap infrastructure in terms of administration, commercial, retail, or residential, and let's start meeting and exceeding code. So before they came out with codes here in BC, we built a subdivision. So smaller square footage, energy, you look at here. Guess what? Average tenant's hydro bill is now $40. And they can get a little bit lower with some DSM. But at the end of the day, we designed a building with energy efficiency principles in it. And it was hit or miss. We didn't have a code. Triple paned windows, smaller windows, better doors, smaller space. That it is what it is. That is the new complex. Hey, look at this bad boy that's coming up. So on Monday, I'm going to do a final walkthrough on the land. So I've now got a step code 3 building. You guys can figure out what that means. Guess what? Well, look, it's grid connected with solar power. So if the power goes off, it's 36 hours. This building's light and heat and cooling and everything will stay on. Remember, we're forecasting a decrease in energy reliability. So why do we have to suffer at Kanaka Bar? If your house is cold, come on over to the community building and warm yourself. If your house is too hot, come on over to the community building and cool yourself. So even if there's a power outage, where do you go in a forest fire? You've got a building that has those air purifiers that are running in a forest fire. Kanaka Bar is now the safest place to be, but it's big enough so that people can evacuate to Kanaka Bar. Oh, look, there's an emergency. Pack your cars, we're moving to Kanaka Bar. As opposed to pack your cars, we're moving to Kamloops Rec Center. Whatever it is, wherever the evacuations go. Guess what? Energy efficiency leads to resiliency. So when you talk about the business case, yeah, we'll get to the business case and the dollar and cents that are coming up. So the lights, heat, cool, communications stay on. Now, guess what? Can you charge your cell phone in a power outage? Come to Kanaka Bar. Yes, you can. The point is, at the end of the day, we're still going to keep our Wi-Fi and everything's working. So we have this concept called a resiliency center. That's it. Well, I'll get to that one here. Here's the next one coming up. So you see that building that's closest? We're now putting in 40 units. We're starting with 20. These will be finished next summer. Again, smaller units, energy efficient, but now we're hitting step code 4. Still don't know what that is. Don't ask me, we just live with it. I don't have a capital plan. I don't have an energy plan, and nobody actually took the time to tell me what step code 4 is. I just said the next building, step code 4, right? They said yes. All right. So now we have we have 20 new residential units with another community amenities building with 36 hours. The whole complex now is under 36 hours of battery storage. Guess what? Same scenario. Amazing. Why doesn't the rest of BC do it? Why doesn't Canada do it? I don't know. Because you know what? We're bringing it all together now on Highway 1. So we are now putting in shelter, right? Commercial, community, 4,000 square feet of buildings. Again, sun, wind, hydro-powered buildings, 8 electric vehicle charging stations that are battery stored. When can I complete this? At this moment, I was down doing the final rough grading plan. You know what? We're going to make this work. Why? Because we have to. There's a landslide. Where do you go in a landslide? There's an avalanche. Where do you go? Where there's a forest fire, where do you go? Come on down to one of our emergency operations centers or park your vehicle and where we have free water. Now, if you forgot a cup, I'll sell you a cup for 10 bucks that says I survived a conversation with the chief. Water is free. But at the end of the day here, if you're having a tough day, come on down to the canyon, the Fraser Canyon, the hottest spot in Canada. We've got the place for you. It sounds like a bloody ad. I've been pitching this toilet for 10 years. But now we're calling it the Must Stop Rest Stop and Oasis in the Fraser Canyon because saying his brother or sister, can you spare $1 for a toilet, is not working with the funders. All right, so now let's get to the business case. What do we value? I was told you can't eat money, and I certainly didn't have energy, electricity when I was growing up, 18 years living in that house. It wasn't until I was having steak dinner down in Maine and Hastings when I found out that the lights of the big red W shine down on Skid Row. You know what I realized? I was in a bad part of town, and an epiphany occurred. Oh my God, I'm an impoverished Indian because I don't have electricity. But I had everything else. So one of the things is don't ask me for a business case when you can't eat money. So then what is a business case? Oh, there you go. Save power, save money. There's a business case, cost benefit, use less energy, operational savings. Hey, guess what? We've eliminated the hydro bill for our band office. So the, what is it, 6,000 to 8,000 we paid a year now goes into programs and services because there was no funding increase. We paid $40,000 for the solar. We then did this whole energy efficiency thing, including DSM, and the savings is transferred as a band into program and service delivery as opposed to paying BC Hydro. The same goes to my health building. The same goes to my water treatment plant. The same goes to my maintenance building. Remember, any person who pays hydro should know this. Right, taxes. Now, band isn't just stuck on doing this, so we're putting a lot of our development off reserve. So what does that mean? That means we're putting in brand new infrastructure with energy efficient everything on it. You think that's not going to change my property values? So you get this huge situation where jobs, we've gone from 6 employees to 54 employees, all because of energy efficiency, energy management plan over a 40-year period. Doesn't our federal and provincial governments want to promote jobs, taxes, and economy? That's why we're building pipelines in Site C. There's something asked backwards there, but again, I digress. I shall get off of that. That's a whole different conversation. What then is a business case? How do you measure success? Using an energy management plan holistic approach, we've reversed the adverse effects of colonization. No suicide, no children in care, and nobody's paying peanuts for our energy consumption. How do you quantify that? How do you quantify return to self-government, the breaking of dependency? Can you? So what's the business case? Do you want to talk about dollars and cents, or do you want to talk about this intangibles? How do you pay for energy efficiency? Always important. Love this slide. Hey, look at the shirt, right? Here I've told you, it's food, health, shelter, and energy, a holistic approach. By embracing a 5-pillared approach, we've changed completely how we feel about ourselves. You can't quantify the return of self-identity. And the actual nation name is the Claptum, forget it. The reason why we choose to go by Kanaka Bar Band is our nation name is tough to say and spell, so is our traditional name, Tla'atla'atin. So for a little bit of face value, but you'll notice that on the website. So guess what? How do you pay for it? I haven't had you reach into your wallet and use some of that gaming revenue. You just got it last month, right? You just got a windfall of $500,000 from the provincial government. Did you spend it on energy efficiency? Have you got royalty agreements with developers in your location? So don't sit there and say you don't have the money if you have own source revenues, right? How about a loan from institutions? I know that I believe it's Van City and we'll call it RBC. They have energy efficiency loans. So as I think you guys were both saying, have a business case, tell a story, right? Funders want to fund a success story. Business cases are weak because the payback period, it can be 12 to 14, 20 years, right? How do you pay for that? Well, guess what? Pay BC Hydro $800 a month or pay a loan off for $800 a month. The loan eventually ends. The BC Hydro bills keep going up. So get a loan. Look at this. Look at First Nations Health Authority. Look at ISP. Look at climate change. Look at economic stimulus funding. Does anybody actually know Bill and Melinda Gates? Because, brother, they designed a toilet and I'm building a toilet. I would love to have a contact with the Gates Foundation. The problem is they're not returning my calls. So somehow you need to sit down here and look. You need to sit down here and fund your energy efficiency, but you need to know what it is. Get your social license first. When I invest as a community and as a leader into energy efficiency, it comes at the expense of let's say, I don't know, the trips to the Vancouver Zoo. It comes at the expense of a new playground. When you have a finite amount of money, you have to target and prioritize. And our community says it's a priority. Water, food, shelter, and energy is the priority, not trips to the zoo. But you better make sure that you get the community buy-in first. All right. So again, going back down to your tangible versus intangibles, it's your choice. You've got, and I right-clicked and stole it. Thank you very much. Anybody from the province of BC will call you the CAS, the Climate Adaptation Strategy people. I mispronounced it as the chaos people. This is their own forecasting of what's coming. Okay. 15 areas. This is the crap storm that's coming by 2050. You better invest in energy efficiency and energy management because this is coming and it's increasing. So guess what? Do it now, save later. It pays for itself, right? Lights stay on, stay cool, stay warm. However, more importantly, it's sustainable. That means everything we've done today benefits my children and grandchildren, but it came at the expense of my wallet today. What a huge shift of thinking. Invest in my grandchildren as opposed to maximizing benefit. All right, Sarah, can you hear it? Can you speak?
Yeah,
What is
definitely.
a word for colonization?
Sorry, another word for colonization?
Yeah, the Intracatma word.
I don't know.
Sure you do. It's called greed. What did we learn from colonization as settler governments? How to maximize wealth at the expense of future generations, but I managed our land and resources for 8,000 years so that my future generations would have the same as, if not more. And energy efficiency allows me to do that again. Crazy. All right. So energy efficiency. You tell me what the business case is, because here's a British Columbian in a tunnel. He's naked. The light at the end of the tunnel is a train or an energy efficiency model. Your choice. Any questions? You asked for you to present, Sarah. Okay.
Thank you so much, Patrick. That was a lot of information, and that is why we put the link to that presentation in our chat box so that the audience has an opportunity to go through those slides at their own pace. And just a reminder, this webinar is being recorded and it will be available online in the coming weeks. So thank you so much. I'm just going to switch back to my screen here, and then we will get into the Q&A with the audience. So we've only got about 10 minutes left to go through the questions, and I see a few have already come in. So if you have questions, feel free to type those into either the question or the chat box, and I will read them out loud. So one of the first questions that has come in asks, in your experience, what are some of the best ways to communicate the non-financial benefits of energy efficiency? And so I'm just going to unmute all of our staff here, and feel free, any of our panelists who would like to. All right, Patrick, go ahead. Try to answer that one.
We meet monthly, and I give a 30-day report to the membership of what we've accomplished over the last 30 days, and I give a 30-day look forward. And then every 6 months, I do a written report called the biannual report, which is then codified and then presented to the membership and through email. And it's also on our website. And most importantly, keep your website updated so that your membership can follow your story contemporaneous to the events. Not everybody has email or websites, but I can tell you, every grandmother has a grandchild and they're on YouTube. They access the website. Grannies know what goes on. It doesn't matter where you live. Maintain a robust communications protocol and keep up with it.
Thank you, Patrick. Rick or Areef, do either of you want to answer that as well or contribute?
Sorry, Rick, did you
Yeah,
want to
sure. Oh, yeah, I'll just say I think it's a great question. because it's a challenge, you know, and trying to look at it from both sides. Number one, within the community, but then also those that you have to report out to. And even as Chief Michell mentioned, you know, in his presentation, there are those intangibles, and that's a challenge for reporting for the folks in the agencies to report up the line, because they're always asking for these quantifiable measures. But I think number one, definitely picking up on having a constant communications protocol or regular communications going out to your members, but also a picture tells 1,000 words. And when you see pictures of people being involved, engaging, that speaks 1,000 words, because you then see that people are taking ownership of it. And I think for that part of the overall well-being, you see it in people's faces when people are participating. So I think having some sort of visuals along with your reporting back out. Go ahead, Areef. I won't take too much time here.
I'll add to what Patrick and Rick said, and I'll be very quick on that. I think there are two things. One, there is certainly a lot of correlation between health, illnesses, and diseases with people living in poor housing with energy issues. And if someone emails me, I'm happy to send the documentation there. But I think the biggest thing is the bills, right? Having high bills that you cannot pay is a hell of a mental stress on people, and it stresses people out, and they have to find the money, or they get cut off, or they get, you know, that is the biggest, to me, the mental stress of being in debt and not being able to pay. So I think there's lots of things that can be quantified.
Thank you. So one of the other questions is around the value of information. So the question is, awareness and appreciation for what energy savings is all about is key to gaining community buy-in into the initiative. How can we better access information?
I'll give us, there's a great publication, actually it's one of the greatest publications that I think Natural Resources Canada have created, and it's called Keeping the Heat In, because that's what your house is for. It's for keeping the heat in. And I would, if you can download it, you can Google it, Keeping the Heat In, and read it. It's the best resource for really understanding information in terms of how a house works. So I think that's the sort of easy answer about getting that kind of information.
Chief Patrick Michell, did you want to add?
Absolutely. So during my presentation, one of my sayings is the best thing about the truth, you don't have to remember it. I thought I covered off that information overload and information is power. Go onto our website and right click and steal. Play this recorded message, play these presentations, play those renovation videos. Give people an understanding that you are not. Areef is correct. People are scared of their energy bill. Show them that with some effort on their part, they can reduce their energy bill, and with full support, we can get you from tier 1 to 0 by generating electricity. Number 5 is about reducing your consumption so that as a community, we can now produce the electricity to supply the entire community. My band office is on solar. My health building is on solar. My maintenance building is on solar. I've got a couple others, 12 operating solar projects. Our challenge here is that nobody owns their property here at Kanaka Bar. They're all renters. So that is my biggest challenge. Kanaka Bar, to the best of my knowledge, is one of the few bands that has no certificates of possession or license of occupancy or whatever those things are. So everybody's a tenant here. So what I have to do is give them the awareness. Step 1, show them their hydro bill. Step 2, show them what's consuming the electricity. Step 3, give them the tools to reduce their energy consumption. And then sit down there with them and show them that by turning off their light bulbs, by going back to hang their clothes out on a line instead of using the dryer, saves you money. You can almost have instantaneous returns within 30 days by just showing them that logical progressive step that I've outlined. Easy as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So looking at the adoption curve, share Kanaka Bar story. That's why we update our website. What we were experiencing here can and should be replicated anywhere. And that's why we are so aggressive in terms of sharing this. I can't quantify those smiles, but watch the videos. That's what everybody's doing. At this moment, I'm the only person not eating pizza and cake. Why? Because it's 1:27 p.m. and I'm on another presentation that's being recorded for people to watch later.
Sarah, can I just add that there was a presentation I did a few years ago. It just reminded me when you asked that question. It started with nobody gives a shit about energy efficiency. It's what energy efficiency gives us is the important piece, and we often forget that, and we do energy efficiency for the sake of doing energy efficiency. So we all need to think about what is it we're trying to achieve, right? What is it giving us? So to stop there.
That's wonderful. So thank you everyone so much, and thank you for the questions that came in. I know there are additional questions that we haven't quite had time to get to, and I apologize, especially some of the broader questions around the connections between energy efficiency work and reconciliation and UNDRIP. So I'm going to save those questions for another webinar, but thank you. I do just want to give about 30 seconds to each of our presenters to share any final thoughts or closing statements before we end this webinar. So let's go through the same order that people presented in. So we'll start with Areef. Do you have any final words you want to share?
Yeah, I just want to thank the audience. I don't know who they are, but I want to thank them for being on, and hopefully what we have shared is of interest and of value, and please feel free to get in touch. I mean, that's the only way we're going to move this thing forward is to talk to each other. And we have different views, and let's share those and come up with good solutions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Areef. And next we'll go to Rick. Rick, do you have any final words that you want to share?
Well, thanks, everybody. And, you know, I think it's that last question that we were talking about just resonates a little bit. It's that talking to each other and collaborating. And I think continuing on with more networks like this, also it's bridging, promoting, advocating for that communication among the communities and the agencies. And I think there's oftentimes a real gap or a wall there. And I think both have to open up those doors because everybody will benefit from it. So thanks very much.
Well, that's great. Thank you. And last but certainly not least, Chief Patrick Michell, do you have any final words that you'd like to share with our audience?
I think for the most part, if you can follow our story, I've described who, what, where, when, but go back to the why. The why. The who, what, where, and when follows the why. My membership, regardless of residency, knows now the why. On and off reserve, my challenge is trying to make sure that I deliver energy efficiency and energy management policy based on the individual levels of each member. Grannies don't follow me, but their kids do. Right? So the kids show Granny what I'm trying to say, but I can also communicate to that level. So just continue to focus on the why, and energy efficiency will take care of itself. Why? Because your residents, your membership, your wife, your kids will start insisting that they implement it.
Fantastic. Thank you all so much for your time and for contributing to our webinar today. I'm very thankful, and I think our audience is too. And just if anyone does have further questions, you're welcome to get in touch with me. I can help you get in touch with our panelists, help you access their presentations and a recording of this webinar. So again, thank you so much. And that draws a close to our webinar today. So thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your afternoons.
Thank you.
The conservation officer is just out on the patio.